Victory Monday always feels good in the NFL, no matter who you are playing. The Minnesota Vikings opened up their season with a 28-6 win in the Meadowlands against the New York Giants. 3.5 point underdogs, I believe. And so, yesterday, I watched the entire game, went back today, watched the condensed version and the highlights. And what I did was, I grabbed a piece of paper and I just wrote down 10 thoughts right here on this Victory Monday. So let's get right into it. Starting with number one, the quarterback position. Most important position of sports. Sam Darnold started the game off with 12 straight completions, led the Vikings' first 99-yard touchdown drive since 2008. And that play was that Gus Frerotte to Bernard Berrien play against the Bears in the Metrodome. But back to Darnold. So what we are seeing and what we saw yesterday is what happens when you put a talented quarterback in a good infrastructure with an okay offensive line, good offensive weapons, and a really good coach who specializes in offense and quarterback development. And you put all those things together, and what we saw was probably one of Sam Darnold's best games in his NFL career. And it's even more impressive that he was able to do it going in a stadium where he probably does not have a lot of good memories with his time with the New York Jets. And, he was just able to go in there. He didn't look rattled. He only got sacked once, I believe, and just managed the game very well. So very good debut for him in purple and gold. And so that leads me to my next point. Another good debut. Talking about the running game, Aaron Jones just looked like he's still in his prime at age, 30. And thank you, Green Bay. Thank you to the Green Bay Packers for releasing him and allowing the Vikings to sign him. And so I think this running game overall is going to be solid this year with Aaron Jones. I mean, he just fought. He plays bigger than what he is. I didn't realize he was only 5'9", 5'8", 5'10", or something like that. He plays bigger than what he is and fights for every yard, and he is still fast. And Ty Chandler is too. So I think the 1-2 punch the Vikings have at running back, the run game is going to look completely different this year. And that's a plus for this team, especially with the quarterback, don't have Kirk anymore. So you're not going to be, you can, but you don't want to air it out as many times as you did last year. I believe the Vikings were top 5 in passing attempts last year, but you need to have a balanced run game as well. And that was a balanced attack that they had both through the air and on the ground yesterday. Now, point number 3, the offensive line. Now, to start the game, first offensive possession, rush play, gain of 0. Second play, Dexter Lawrence gets in the backfield and sacks Sam Darnold. And then the third play, you had a fumble by C.J. Ham down there in the flats. But outside of the first drive, I thought the offensive line played okay. Now, starting with the bad, Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury, I believe they gave up a lot of pressures. But again, you're going up against a New York Giants defensive line. The New York Giants is not a good football team, but you're going against a defensive line, probably the strength of their team that has Dexter Lawrence and some other playmakers on that roster as well. And so it was going to be tough. It was going to be tough against that defensive front that they had. But they were able, again, Darnold only sacked one time outside of the first drive. He was only sacked once. And Blake Brandel, probably the biggest surprise of the afternoon yesterday. PFF released their numbers, and he was the highest graded Vikings player, I believe, for this team. I believe he was the highest graded probably guard in the NFL as well. And he was, a 7th round draft selection at UDFA a couple years ago. And the front office, the coaching staff, they put a lot of faith in him this offseason, saying he's going to be the left guard. And he went out there and showed everyone why he deserved that starting spot, and he played well. And so that's a huge plus for this offensive line. I thought they played solid as well. Now, flipping over the other side of the ball for point number 4, the defensive line. I mean, just watching it, everyone made a play, it seemed like. They were so active against the Giants, and they just made Daniel Jones's day very rough. I mean, starting Jonathan Grenard, he did not have a sack, but I saw him in the backfield getting pressures. I saw a lot of Harrison Phillips. He got a sack, and Patrick Jones, I believe he had two sacks as well. And then Dallas Turner came in there, got his first sack as well. I believe he's only the second Viking, aside from Brian Robinson in 2007 against Atlanta, to get a sack in his first NFL game for this team. But the MVP, and I think we can all agree on this, of the defensive line, the defense overall, was Andrew Van Ginkel. I was so happy when the Vikings signed him in the offseason. He was able to reunite with Brian Flores. He was all over the field. And that pick 6, that was just the icing on the cake for that team. So very solid debut. Another debuted in purple, and he played well. And then that leads me to my point number 5, just the defense overall. I mean, they look fast, physical. They tackled well, played with confidence. And coming into this year, I knew that the defense was going to be the strength of this team. They played well last year. They played okay until the end. And I was like, man, Brian Flores is going to get these guys back for a second year. He's going to have a second year with this system, with the same team. They're going to take a step forward. But I think they're going to be really, really, really good this year. And yesterday, they had that Giants offense miserable all game. And so I really liked what I saw from the defense. And kind of expanding more on it on point number 6, Brian Flores. I'm so happy for him to be in Minnesota and really succeeding. And I thought about this today. It's even sweeter that he got to do it and perform well, call a great game against Brian Dable, especially after that whole thing with the Giants job with Bill Belichick calling him and congratulating him when he didn't get the job and it already went to Brian Dable. Of course I hope he gets a head coaching job if he wants it, but I want him to be in Minnesota for as long as possible. And that leads me to my point number 7. Kevin O'Connell should have been coach of the year in 2022. And it's really Ed Donatel and that defense that sabotaged that from happening, and it went to Dable instead. But, Kevin O'Connell, again, I said at the beginning of this, he's a solid head coach. And he should have been the coach of the year over Brian Dable in 2022. And I hope him and Brian Flores are the ones to help lead this team over the top and win a Super Bowl in the foreseeable future, hopefully quick. And, yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Now, point number 8, December 2019. Now, what's significant about that date? That is the last time the Vikings beat a team by more than 17 points. Now, I know people are going to say, yes, they beat the Giants. I mean, yeah, like I said, the Giants are going to be picking number 1 overall probably and getting Carson Beck. But the Vikings, it just seems like the past few years, they've played up to their opponents, but they've also played down to their opponents as well against some bad football teams. And good football teams, if you're a good football team, you take care of business. And when you play bad football teams, you beat the mess out of them. And that's what the Vikings did yesterday. And like I said, you beat bad football teams by more than one score. And it was just weird because you went to the fourth quarter of that game. As a Vikings fan, it's just been so stressful the last few years watching this team in the fourth quarter. And now you could just relax and just enjoy football and watch them close this thing out. And, I'm so glad they were finally able to beat a team by more than 17 points in the fourth quarter and kind of get a blowout win. I mean, they just kicked their butts on both sides of the ball. Now, number 9, what I wrote here is it feels like a fresh beginning, especially with Kirk Cousins gone. He didn't play well against the Steelers yesterday. And so with Kirk gone, I know Kevin O'Connell, the GM's been here for going into year 3. It just feels like a fresh new era, a fresher breath air. And, you don't know what's going to happen this season, but it's just one of those, like I said on my predictions episode, it's just you don't really know. And that's sometimes a good thing because when the team doesn't have the expectations, you can just play free and play loose and just go out there and really just play football. And you see a team like the Packers and Eagles, a lot of expectations for those teams. They didn't play that great in Brazil. And, there's going to be critics and stuff going after them. And so, the Vikings, I feel like they could make the playoffs. And, with no expectation, that's when it feels like this team really thrives the most. Now, my last point and point number 10, looking ahead to San Francisco. They play tonight against the New York Jets on Monday Night Football, but that's really going to be the true test. These next few weeks are going to be the true test for the Vikings as well, playing all playoff teams for the next 3 weeks. But San Francisco, I respect them a lot. I think they'll win the Super Bowl this year. I still think that's a very talented roster. I have high respect for Kyle Shanahan as an offensive play caller. So that's going to be a true test. I know the Vikings beat them last year without Justin Jefferson. So I'm really looking forward to that game. Don't know what to expect. I don't believe they'll get blown out in the game. I don't think I had it as a win, but, I'm excited again just to see what happens. That's how the season is going to be. I mean, like I said, no expectations. It's looking ahead and see what happens. If they come away victorious, that's going to be even better victory Monday. So that's all I got, 10 thoughts right there. And as always, on this beautiful Monday, at least it is here in Missouri. I don't know how it is up in Minnesota, but just a blessed day. And as always, Skol Vikes.